Hi everyone, it's Katie from Midnight Music here, back with another Music Tech teaching session. So for the next little while, I thought I would share with you some super simple tips for recording students in music class. And this follows on from a couple of other live sessions I've been doing in the last few days. I've been really enjoying them, so I'm hoping to do more in the coming weeks as well and make it a more of a regular thing. I can see I've got Tori on again, and Tori was on last night when I was running the session, so hopefully you've actually had some sleep between now and then, Tori. Or maybe you're in the States, I'm not sure where you're located. If you're watching, let me know where you're watching from, I'd love to find out. And it's nice to see the variety of people from different places around the world. I'll get started in a couple of minutes. I'm just going to give people a couple of seconds to join in if they're going to try and join us live here. And I'm just flicking over to my other screen so I can also see what you're seeing, hopefully. Here we go. Excellent. So, yeah, let me know where you're from and where you're watching. Tori, I'm not sure if you're in Australia like I am. Maybe you are. Otherwise, maybe you're overseas. Sydney. Excellent. Okay, so, yeah, you had the same sleep time as me between sessions. Well, that's good that you can get on during the day. That's excellent. This is a more US kind of friendly time because it's evening for sort of 8 o'clock in New York, and so it's a good time for teachers in the States. But excellent if you've got the flexibility too. So I thought I'd continue on today, and today's subject is recording tips for when you're working with students in class. There's some really simple things you can do to make recording a lot better than, just perhaps what you've been trying in the past. Maybe you've had a go and it hasn't worked out so well. Maybe you haven't tried it. Maybe you think it's all too hard, too expensive, that you need lots of expensive equipment. But I really think you can use what you have on hand and actually make use of things that you might already have around you, whether that's inbuilt recording, microphones in devices that you have already, or maybe you've got some microphones lying around the school that you work at and you could actually put them to good use. So, and Tori's just saying she's got a free period now. That's great timing. Excellent. If you're also watching, I know I've got Tori on, but if you've got there's a few other people I can see have joined us. Let me know where you're from. Great to hear. I've got just a big truck rolled up outside, so hopefully it's not going to be too noisy. It's always fun when you're doing live sessions and there's a little bit of living on the edge involved, so all good. I'm just checking my list of notes here. So, super simple tips for recording students in music class. First of all, you might sort of wonder why record. What are the reasons for recording in the first place? And there are lots of really great reasons for doing it. So I'll go through a few of those. I thought I would also share today some microphone suggestions and really microphone options for all budgets. So whether you've got little or no money, right through to, if you've got a little bit of money that you can spend on getting some microphones, because it will always make it a better experience for you and the students as well. And we'll talk about, how many mics do you need? Do you need one for every student, or can you get away with just a handful of mics? And what else are we going to talk about? I'm going to talk also about recording environment and what you can do to get around the fact that you may not have a professional recording studio at hand. I'm sure most of you don't have that situation. So I want to talk about options for what to do if you're just in a normal classroom situation and some of the things you can do to make things a little bit better. So if you just joined us, I can see a few more people on now. We're talking super simple tips for recording students in music class. So I'm going to get started. I've got a list of these things that I'm going to talk about today. It's actually based on a blog post that I wrote quite some time ago. I think it was in 2016. So I'm going to share a link to that blog post at the end of the session where you can get the information that I'm going to give you and the tips. And you can actually download a PDF copy of the information from that blog post too. So first of all, why record? What sort of reasons might you have for recording students in the first place? And there are lots of good ones. Things like capturing creativity is a really perfect example of recording, particularly in music class. So you might want to capture students performing original compositions that they've written or arrangements. They might be working on a creative project which involves them recording sound effects, for instance, so maybe a storytelling or a film scoring project. You might be doing storytelling as an activity, as a project with them in groups, and you want them to record their narration. Other things you might want to do are to record rehearsals or performances that students are doing. And this could be really low level, not low level as in quality, but casual type performances. And I'm talking kids getting up in front of a classroom to perform something that they've been working on as a solo person or in a group together. So just classroom ensemble things, you might want to capture those and record those. Students might be working in small groups, and maybe they need to go off and record themselves doing something, the creative thing that they've been working on. If you work with ensembles, choirs or band or orchestra, you might want to capture rehearsals for feedback purposes. Fantastic to play back recordings to students to give them an idea of actually what it sounds like when you're listening to the ensemble. It can sound really different. You would know, when you're a performer inside an ensemble, it sounds really different to you than it does to someone out the front of the ensemble. So great to give sort of some instant feedback to students during rehearsals. And also, if you're recording performances, you might want to record them for archival purposes too. So that can be another one. I can see I've got a few more people joined us, so welcome. I can see, I don't know if I'm going to say your name right, Belaine. Hopefully that's correct. And Linda and Deborah and Alex. Hi, Alex from New Jersey, I think. I can see that there. Excellent. Thank you for joining us. We're talking super simple tips for recording students today in class. So some of the issues with recording students, in a school setting is that you might not have a recording studio. We mentioned that before. You might not have expensive gear, probably don't. You might be really short on time and you might have very limited devices available. But I really think there's still some things that you can do, even with limited devices and limited resources at hand. There's some great things you can do to get a bit of a better result. So I thought I'd share with you today a few of my favourite tips. And the first thing is to do with microphones. Now, you don't need to go out and spend hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars on microphones to use with students. You can actually make do a lot of the time with perhaps what you have, or maybe even just upgrade a little bit. That's a really great thing. If you can upgrade a little bit, you're going to get a much better result, which the students will appreciate. And you as a teacher will also appreciate listening to slightly better quality recordings if you've got to do a lot of assessment of those recordings. So this can be a win-win situation for everyone. So as you would know, if you're recording onto a laptop or an iPad, you have an inbuilt microphone in those devices. Now, most of the time. Now, that's an okay option, and I'm going to talk through if you are using that as your only option, which is okay. I don't think for me it wouldn't prevent me from doing recordings in the first place, but there are a few things you can do to make it a better experience. I'll get to those in a moment. If you can use some external microphones and plug them into the iPad or the laptop, you're going to get a much, much better result. And they can be quite simple. So if you're just doing narration type, talking type things, that can be really good to use those gaming headphones. You know the headphones you have, and they've got like a microphone attached which comes around to the front of the mouth. Lots of the kids have them to play games on. My own kids use them too. And that can be great because it will cut out a lot of other outside noise and just pick up the voice. It's not fabulous for singing because, things will distort quite easily. So it's really good if you've got the gaming headphones that you're just using it for the right type of project. So great for talking, narration, maybe even some rapping stuff. That can be a good thing too. Second option is to get a USB mic. So this is a microphone that has a cable that plugs via USB straight into your laptop, and you can also plug it into your iPad if you've got iPads at hand too. Now I've got a few things around me on my desk. I thought I would just do show and tell a little bit today. So one of my USB microphones looks like this, and I'm just bumping my other mic here. Oh, everything's backwards in reverse on the screen, so I'm just trying to work out where to move things. So this is a blue Snowball microphone, and you can see it's got its own little stand there. So it just sits on the desk. And on the back here, it's got the place where the place where the cable plugs in, which is just there. And up here, it's got a little switch with 3 settings. And basically, you basically plug it straight into the laptop or iPad and it works straight away. You don't need to fiddle around with installing drivers or strange software or anything like that. It just kind of plugs in and works straight away. I will give you a couple of tips about how to make sure that you're using this microphone and that your software isn't just using the inbuilt microphone, even if you have this plugged in. So I'll talk about that later. But this microphone's great. It depends where you're living as to how much it is. In the States, I think it's a little less expensive, under $100. In Australia here, a little bit more, around the $100 mark or just under. And I think it's been around $80 at times. And if you're an educator, of course, you get an education discount. So one of the reasons I like this one, you don't have to get this one. There are lots of USB mics available. But this one's got the 3 settings on that black switch there. One allows you to set the microphone to pick up sound just in front of the microphone. So basically you'll talk or sing towards the front here, and it will kind of cut out a lot of the peripheral noise, which is really useful. The other setting allows you to pick up sound all around the microphone, and this is great for ensemble. So you can plonk it in the middle of your ensemble, or suspend it above, or put it on a stand so that it's a microphone stand so that it's kind of suspended above the ensemble or the front of it. And that will pick up sound all around with the other setting. And the third setting allows you to record louder rock bands and that sort of thing, and it kind of takes the input level down a little bit so that the sound doesn't distort. I don't really use that one at all. I don't have an occasion to use that, but I've definitely used the other two. So USB microphones like this one are just super simple and really easy to use. I'm going to pause every now and again and check for questions. I can see a couple coming in here, so I'll just do that now. Hello to those that have joined us. I can see Deborah. Debbie is from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Debbie. Alex from New Jersey. Susan from New York. Excellent. And Lisa here too, but it says Carl. Okay, dual personality. And Tori's asked, do the USB microphones come with the cable? Yes, they do. I haven't got it here handy. A lot of my cables are being used currently to plug in other things that I've got around. Otherwise, I'd hold one up. But it's a really standard cable. It's the same sort of one that you use, same lead that you would use to plug a MIDI keyboard into your laptop as well. And so the cables are sort of interchangeable. You can just pick those up and use them for whichever device at the time. So that's one of my USB mics. Now, I've also gotten this one more recently, and it's this one here. Carl said, you're on your hubby's Facebook page. That's okay. That's all right. This one here is an Audio-Technica microphone, ATR 2100. And I'll put this information in the description afterwards so you don't need to remember model numbers. But again, this is another USB mic, and I'm not sure if you can see. Oh, yeah, at the bottom here. There's a place for the USB cable to plug in, which is this one here. That's the sort of the microphone end of it, and the other end is the USB. But this also has the added benefit of having an XLR cable input as well. So if you've got regular stage microphones, they use an XLR cable usually. So this one gives you the option to do either, and that's really useful. It gives you a little bit of flexibility for where you can use it. I have a little foam cover which I put on top of that just to sort of stop the popping sound and the wind going into that. So that those little foam covers, by the way, I bought like 5 of them on Amazon for about $4 or so. Really useful. I've got one on this microphone too. This mic is actually my Shure SM58, which is a great stage mic. Lots of schools just have those. It's a really standard mic for bands to use. And again, you could even use that with your laptops or your iPads if you've got access to those. You do need something else to plug in between the microphone and your device, which I can talk through as well. Let me just finish on the USB mics first though. So I mentioned that USB mics just plug straight into your laptop, into the USB port, which is nice and easy. If you're on an iPad, there's a little adapter that you can buy here. I should have grabbed a cable. Maybe I can find one really quickly. Don't have one handy. That's okay. You can just imagine. This is the USB cable spot. So the microphone, cable will come into there, and this end plugs into the iPad, the end of the iPad, where the charger cable usually plugs in. So that's a great way of using the iPad, and you can just plug the USB mic into there. Now that's one of my options for plugging microphones into the iPad. I have another one as well, which I'll show here, which is this device here. Let's get it in the right position. It's so hard to work with the view of myself that I'm seeing. Everything's kind of reversed, so it's backwards, and I have to move things the opposite way to what I think. So this is an iRig Pre, and this is a little device where this end here, I'll just put it where you can see it. This end here plugs into the iPad headphone socket, and the other end here is where you would plug your microphone. Now you can't really see that there. Oh, maybe there. It's got the XLR. There we go. It's got the XLR end bit in it, and that allows you to use the XLR microphone straight into your iPad. So I use that as well. Really, really good. The iRig Pre, that's about $50-ish or so for this adapter. And that little white one is an standard Apple one, and that one is, I think, around $45. Well, in Australia anyway. It might be a bit less in the States. So that's ways that you can plug in USB mics into your devices. And honestly, for classroom use, that would be the easiest option, I think. If you just had a few, you don't need one for every student. You could just have, maybe if you've got sort of 3 or 4 in your classroom, students can use them in a rotational format, or they could be working in small groups and still be able to use them there. There are other microphones available. If you want to really, go for it and go better quality, you can get condenser mics if you're doing, sort of proper recordings, more high quality recordings, and so on. And then, you really need to think heavily about the environment that you're recording in as well. But just for students doing project work, USB mics are fantastic. Really, really good. Just seeing if I've forgotten anything there. Yep. So just one other thing on plugging in devices, particularly into your laptop. If you are plugging in a mic, it's really good to do that first and then open up afterwards the software that you're going to use to record into. So if you're on a Mac using GarageBand, for instance, I would plug the microphone in and then open up GarageBand. And what you need to do in GarageBand is actually go in and make sure that it sees your microphone. Make sure that you've got that selected, because even though it's plugged in, it may not decide to use that microphone by default. You might need to actually physically select it. Same thing if you're using Audacity on PCs or Macs. You plug the mic in first, then open Audacity, and then choose it as the input device from the drop-down menu up the top. Same thing with any other software program, whether it's Mixcraft on a PC or Studio One or anything like that. Always the same order. Order is important. I want to talk about environment. So places to record students, options for spaces at school for recording students. Now, if you can, it's really great to separate into separate spaces if you've got groups of students who are all needing to record at once. If you've got the luxury of a few spaces in your, area, that's an ideal situation now. And no, not all of you have that option by any means. But if you can, spaces either inside your classroom, using closets, cupboards, are good options. It might sound silly, but they are good options because they're quite enclosed and usually fairly quiet, and a deadened space, that's a really good option. If you've got spare rooms around your corridor, that's a great option. Even the hallway itself can be good. Now, you need to really make sure that you're not disturbing other people, of course. So, again, that may not be an option for you. So you just need to work with what you've got. Now, if you can't send students out into, different spaces, you might want to look at your own single classroom space and just take a look at the environment. So things that work better are carpeted areas. So if students are recording on or near carpeted areas, or covered walls that have some sort of artwork on them or a pinboard, that's going to be a lot better than recording on hard floors, shiny surfaces, surrounded by brick walls and so on. You're going to get a really bright, echoey sound in the recording, and it's just not a very nice result. It's not a great thing for anyone to listen to, whether it's the students or whether it's you yourself. So look around for those sort of soft furnishings is really good. I'm going to show you some ways that teachers have actually gotten around this and made the environment a little bit better. And it's quite funny, actually. I've had some great photos back from people who have taken some suggestions that I've said in workshops and come back and shown me what their students have ended up doing. But yeah, that's a great option if you can look for sort of soft furnishing areas. And I'll talk a little bit more about workflow options in a moment too. And Jay's joined us from Florida. Hi, Jay. Thanks for coming along. Now, I'm just going to see if I can do something a little bit tricky and share my screen with you. This is a new thing today, so just wish me luck here. Oh, does that work? Can someone comment and just let me know if you can see my Keynote file, which says super simple tips for recording students. Hopefully that's working. There's a little bit of delay between what I say and then when you comment, so I'll just wait a second to make sure that that's coming through okay. Hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers. All right, I'm going to assume it looks okay to me, so I'm going to keep going here. Oh yes, thank you. Yay, thanks Tori, thanks Susan. And yes, oh yes, yep, Lisa Carl is just asking for a link from yesterday's session. Okay, yes, I can definitely do that, no problems at all. So, simple tips, for recording students. I've just got a couple of things here. So we talked about wire recording. This is from a presentation that I've used in a workshop, recently. So we talked earlier, and just to recap, we've talked about showing progress and tracking milestones and giving students feedback and that sort of thing. And we've talked a little bit about equipment, so using whatever you have on hand. So I mentioned iPads and laptops. Of course, it could be an Android device of some sort. Smartphones are fantastic for doing recordings and capturing things. And we talked also microphones, so levelling up if you can, keeping it really simple, and maybe using what's on hand already. So here's a better picture, a bit more clear picture of some of the options. Now this is just a really small handful of options here. And this is my Audio Technica microphone that I mentioned and showed, and this Blue Snowball. The big brother microphone to the Blue Snowball is called the Blue Yeti. That's a more expensive one, a higher quality one. And then there's the standard Shure SM58 on the right here, and that one's pretty stock standard for bands to use. Software, I'm going to come back to software. I wanted to show you this options for recording booths, in inverted commas. And here's what you can do if you are struggling to find a great place for students to record. You can actually do a little bit of DIY, and I've got just a few things here to show you. So I've been suggesting for quite some time this option here, DIY voice recording box that you can see here, is something that's been set up by a teacher. I've actually been talking about this idea for a number of years, and then I found this teacher's website, Mr. Pearson Teaches Third Grade, and he's got some great pictures of the ones that he has made for his class to use, and he's actually got some instructions on there, so I'll make sure I link to that blog post that he has. But basically this is one of his students using a cardboard box on its side. The iPad is inside the cardboard box, and they've lined the cardboard box with a bit of foam, and so this is the top-down view of that cardboard box. So this just means that you're going to get a little bit, a little bit better quality recording going. If the students are talking towards the box, into the box, it means that they are protecting the device from lots of external sound going in, and it's just going to capture their voice instead. And so therefore it gives a much, much better recording quality in the end. So it really does make a big difference. I've done this with just really simple things. Even without the foam, it can make a massive difference to what the iPad is picking up. So if you are in the situation where you can't send students off, down the hallway and into other rooms, you could get them to record still in the one classroom, but if you've got a few of these boxes set up, then that's a great option. So that's the one on the right here. Now, the one underneath that, which is really similar, is a more professional option of the same thing. This is on sale. There's a voiceover artist who started selling his own setup of the same type of concept. He's got one of those fabric boxes which you use in, if you can see my bookshelf behind me, that's an IKEA bookshelf, and you can go and buy fabric boxes which fit into those, holes. And this guy has set up one of those, again with the foam inside. The good thing about his option is that you can actually, he hasn't stuck the foam onto the walls, he's just got it sitting in there. And you can basically remove the foam and then fold that fabric box, the blue bit, down flat. So this would be really good for storing your little recording booths afterwards, and that's also a great option. I've bought my own one of those fabric boxes just from my local hardware shop. We have Bunnings here in Australia, and I bought it there for about $4. IKEA sells them as well. You could grab a few of those and maybe do a cross-curricular project with someone in another area where you're setting up your own mini recording booths. So that's that one at the bottom right. Now, the two on the left come from my lovely friend Cheryl, who's based in Adelaide, and she's been kind enough to send me through these photos of her students working. The girl on the top left-hand corner, she's actually using an iPad inside a wooden locker. I think it's wooden. That's what it looks like in the picture. She's put the iPad into the locker and then she's talking towards it. So I think that she's actually standing up and the locker is basically at her, chest height. So this is, again, a really great option for students and a great sort of example of just using what you have access to. And the one underneath is also from Cheryl too. She got some cheap, I think she said they were plastic boxes, and she just put a towel around the outside. So again, this stops you, needing to sort of fuss around with getting proper foam. If you've got some sort of padding around the outside of a plastic box, again, that works really well. And she does lots of recording with her students. They do a lot of capturing of examples of their own creativity for digital portfolios that she puts together. And so that's a couple of ways that she's been doing it. She also even had, and I didn't quite have time to put it into the picture here, but at another place that she was working, she had to work in the gym for a while, in the school gymnasium for a while. That was her music room. And in addition to freezing to death during winter inside the gymnasium, she also made use of some of the gym equipment and basically set up crash mats around students. They kind of ended up creating almost like a cubby house with the crash mats, and sat inside that to do some recording, which was quite good. And that was the way she got around working in a bright environment like a gymnasium. So again, a great option, and great example of using what you have. Hang on, my computer's giving me funny messages. That's better. We're back. Tori's asking, where can you buy the foam? Yep, you can buy the foam on Amazon. If you've just got access to Amazon, you can just hop on there and look for acoustic foam. Now, I am not quite sure. I need to do a little bit more research myself, because there seems to me to be a massive variety in prices of different types of acoustic foam. So obviously more expensive is probably better quality. For school use though, I'm not quite sure. If anyone knows, I'd love it if you comment, a specific type of foam. And if you can talk sort of generic types rather than brand names, that helps, because we've got people from all over the world joining us today. But yeah, the foam is not too hard to come by. Tori, because I know you're in Australia, I actually think that maybe even somewhere like Clark Rubber has it too. But you could just Google sort of acoustic foam and you would find some options there. But yeah, I suspect you don't need to buy really, really super expensive stuff, and I think it comes in sheets, so you could just measure out, what the measurements are for the inside of the boxes that you're using, and then just buy a big sheet, and then basically use that and chop it up, sort of cut it up, so that should work quite well. Excellent. I want to show you one last example on the next slide here, if I can just switch over. I'm not suggesting this is a good one, but this is one of the photos the teacher sent through to me after I'd spoken about recording booths in a workshop. And basically she was working with these boys in her class, and they decided that rubbish bins, garbage cans, would be a good recording sound booth option. I'm not convinced, because 2 out of the 3 there are metal, and I don't know how good the result would have been using those, but I thought it was pretty funny. It reminds me, if any of you have seen a long, long time ago, if any of you have seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, showing my age here a little bit, it reminds me of a scene from that where garbage cans came out of the sky and fell on the heads of people in the movie. Anyway, that's recording booths. I'm going to just switch back to not sharing my screen. I'll go back to my camera again. Here we go. Yeah, pretty funny, Susan. I agree. And Jay's saying he got his acoustic foam off Amazon. Great, yeah. I've seen lots of listings on there, so I think that's probably a great place to start. And shipping's so easy and quick and all of that stuff. So now if you want to, just going, that previous photo I showed you where the two students were recording, the photos that I got from my friend Cheryl, she has a fantastic blog. She's an elementary music teacher, and she has a fantastic blog where she shares lots of things that she does, including digital portfolio, things that she's working on with students and recording stuff, and she uses iPads a lot. So if you're looking for ideas about that, definitely head to her blog. And again, I'll put a link to that in the description or one of the comments after I finished. But it's called Mrs. B Music Room, and her name's Cheryl Bergmeister. So do check it out. She's got some really useful information, and she goes quite into detail about things. And I know lots of you are looking for that sort of stuff. So all good. The last thing I'll say is workflow is another thing that you can consider to get around perhaps needing to record, students all in the one classroom at once if you don't have that opportunity to split up into separate spaces. Workflow, if you sort of rethink things a little bit, you can perhaps have groups working on recording projects, but they may not all need to do the recording bit all at once. So you might involve some other activity as well, and so that, different lessons, there are different times when each of the groups will do their recording. And that way the rest of the class can perhaps be doing a quieter activity, maybe some sort of literacy thing or a worksheet where they're sitting quietly and one group is using that time to do recording. So that's one option. And again, it's not always possible, but it's just good to have some ideas so you can kind of keep them in the back of your mind. Let me just have a look. Yep. And just on that point as well, sometimes the recording projects have a lot of different tasks involved. So there might be writing and planning and gathering resources and all of that sort of thing. So perhaps some of those things can be rotated through during class time so that not everybody needs to record at once. And that will also help if you've got just limited devices to use. You can just, share them out and use them on a rotational basis. Right, I'm going to finish up, and while I'm I'm going to just verbally share a couple of links with you, and I forgot to, I'll type it in as we go, one of the ones for today. But basically there's a list of the things that I talked about in a blog post that I wrote some time ago, and the link for that is midnightmusic.com.au/record. Let me just do a ninja thing, hopefully. Just ignore this first one I'm putting up, and I'll just see if I can edit it. I can move this text around on my screen here. Just change the end of this link. There we go. So midnightmusic.com.au/record. Now, I think it was Lisa was asking about yesterday's link. Lisa, it's the same link, but at the end, instead of record, just type in 15 ways. The number 15, 15 WAYS, 15 ways, and that will give you that one. Excellent. And if you want any more help after today, I have my online professional development for community for music teachers, and we talk, all about music tech stuff. There's a lot of online courses in there and lesson plans and tips and ideas like this one and regular videos. And I'm just starting to do regular monthly training sessions just for the members as well, where we all log on at the same time and we can ask questions, or people can ask questions of me or even of each other and share ideas and that sort of thing. So if you want more information about that, I'm going to put another link up here. It's going to be in a funny spot. There we go. I'll just put it across my head for the moment. That's that one there. So midnightmusic.com.au/simple music tech. And there's a special offer on at the moment. So that's it. I've got a couple more Facebook Live sessions today. I'm going to move these. I feel like they're right across my head here. There we go. A couple of other Facebook Live sessions in the next 2 days. And the next one's going to be 19 ways to use a single iPad in the music classroom. And the last one for the week is going to be my general tips for surviving technology in the classroom. So just some things that I've kind of learnt over the years, picked up, and that I find useful, and they're things that I do all the time to prevent disasters. So I'll share those again. So the times for those, the next one is going to be, so for people in the States, it's going to be Thursday the 31st of August at 6 a.m. I know that's not a lovely time for you guys, but you can watch the recording afterwards if you're not up early. And for us here in Australia, that's Thursday the 31st of August at 8 p.m. And then the one after that is the US-friendly one, which is Thursday the 31st of August at 8 p.m. And that's the one, the general tips for surviving technology. And for me here in Australia, for anyone else in Australia, that's Friday, September the 1st at 10 a.m. That's the equivalent time there. I'll put those up on my Facebook page anyway. And if you like the Midnight Music Facebook page, you'll get a notification when I go live too. So thank you so much for joining today. If you came along live, I can see some latecomers. Susan and Allison's commented. Oh, you're in Melbourne too, enjoying the horrible wet, cold weather today with me. And Shana from Alberta, Canada. Excellent. Thank you, Shana. You're welcome. And thank you, Lisa/Carl. Thanks, Shana. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. I'll finish up now, but if you still have questions after we end the live session, just post them in the comments and I'll get back to you during the course of the day. And yeah, great. Thank you. Excellent. So nice to chat to people live. All right, I will sign off now. Have a good rest of the day or evening, depending on which part of the world you're in. Thanks, Susan. See you later. Bye-bye.